بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to have our 45th session on Kashf al-Murad, alhamdulillah. And inshallah in the next 2-3 sessions we will finish this section and we start section on Nubuwwah, on prophethood, which would be more easier and more familiar. We were talking about the suffering and the pains and compensation for that. And as you remember, the last thing was what Khwaja said about the people that are oppressed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give compensation to them, because if they are oppressed by others, but this world belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if they have nothing to give or they are not going to give, Allah would make sure that they receive enough that they would be satisfied. So then Khwaja said, فَإِنْ كَانَ الْمَظْلُومُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ, if the one who is oppressed is from those who are people of Jannah, means this person is going to go to heaven. فَرَّقَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى أَعْوَاذَهُ عَلَى الْأَوْقَاتِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would distribute and divide his returns and compensations over time. As you remember, we said that their concern was that for people of heaven, if this compensation is going to stop, then after that there would be sadness, there would be a pain, because they were receiving something that has stopped. So what Allah is going to do is He is going to give less but over time, instead of giving something a lot at a short period of time and then stopping altogether. أو تفضل عليه بمثلها, or Allah would give something from Himself similar to what He is going to be given as return, so that if that stops, Allah's fazl continues, so that there is no change that He would feel sad why I have lost. But وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِقَابِ, but if this person who deserves now some compensation is unfortunately in hell, is mazloom, therefore his right is not going to be compromised because he's going to hell. It's very important. Everything has its own place. So even if a person from hell has a right, we have to respect. So وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْعِقَابِ أَسْقَطَ بِهَا جُزْءًا مِنْ عِقَابِهِ بِحَيْثُ لَا يَظْهَرُ لَهُ التَّخْفِيفُ, Allah would drop part of his pain, because in hell what we can do is to reduce the pain. In hell we cannot give pleasure, we have to reduce the pain. But how this is going to work, you have to consider two things. One is that there should be no takhfif, because in hell there is no takhfif, there is no reduction. Of course, as you remember, I explained last week the view of Ayatollah Subhani, which was very nice, that the Quranic verses that we mentioned, few examples, talk about pain not being reduced is for when there is no justification. This person is madloom, and this can be a justification. So that is another view. But here the view is that pain should not be reduced. So what will be done is that part of his punishment would be dropped, but in the way that he would not feel reduction. How he would not feel reduction? It is divided again over time to the extent that the difference is not that much, sensed. It's very little. This is what Khaja said, and we explained last week. Now let's go to Allama Hilli's comment. أقول لما بين وجوب الانتصاف ذكر كيفية إيصال العباد إلى مستحقه. After Khaja explained that intisaf, to take from zalim for madloom, when we explained that it is wajib, now Khaja said how Evaz is going to be given to mustahiq. ذكر كيفية إيصال. إيصال means to make sure that it would reach. Evaz would be reached to mustahiq. وَعْلَمْ. Now Allama rahmatullah has his explanation. أن المستحق للعباد, the person who deserves evaz, madloom for example, إما أن يكون مستحقا للجنة أو للنار. If he's a person who deserves heaven, or he's a person who deserves punishment. فإن كان مستحقا للجنة, if he deserves to go to Jannah, is أهل الجنة. فإن قلنا إن العبادات دائم فلا بحث. If that compensation is something that can be forever, no problem. There would be no, sudden or, gradual decrease, so that there would be pain. Why I have lost it? People of Jannah should not have any pain, even pain of losing some pleasure that they had at some time. So if Evaz is daim, so no problem. There is no discussion, because he's not going to feel any difference. وَإِنْ قُلْنَا إِنَّهُ مُنْقَطِعٌ. But if this Evaz is going to stop, توجه الإشكال بأن يقال. Then this إشكال comes that لو أوصل الإبض إليه ثم انقطع عنه حصل له الألم بانقطاعه. This objection comes that if Evaz is made to reach him, then انقطع, and then stops, حصل له الألم بانقطاعه. Then because of its انقطاع, its stop, he would have pain. And we are supposed not to have any pain in Jannah. وَالْجَوَابُ مِنْ وَجْهَيْنِ. Now he has two responses. الأول أنه يوصل إليه عباده متفرقا على الأوقات بحيث لا يبين له انقطاعه. The Evaz would reach him, but divided and distributed over time, to the extent that inqita would not be made clear for him. فَلَا يَحْصُلُ لَهُ الْأَلَمُ. He doesn't feel that he has lost it, so there is no pain. Or the second option is أن يتفضل الله تعالى عليه بعد انقطاعه بمثله دائما. There is no problem for tafazzul. Allah can do tafazzul, have a favor on him by giving after what he deserves something as tafazzul that he doesn't deserve, but Allah gives him, so that this continues and he wouldn't feel pain for losing it. فلا يحصل وإن كان مستحقا للعقاب. But if this person is not from Ahlul Jannah, is a person that is deserving punishment, جعل الله تعالى إوزه جزءا من عقابه. Allah would make his compensation part of his punishment, in the sense that this compensation with his punishment will be overall leading to less punishment, like minus this punishment minus this compensation becomes less. جعل الله تعالى إوزه جزءا من عقابه. This evaz becomes part of the punishment. In what sense? بمعنى أنه يسقط or يسقط من عقابه. يسقط is متعدي, يسقط is لازم. It drops or it's going to drop from the punishment. بإزاء ما يستحق من الإوز. Proportionate to what compensation he deserves, azab will be reduced. You may say, we have to give him something, not we have to reduce the azab. He says, doesn't make difference. There must be a benefit for him. Uqala, intelligent, rational people say, when you want to give compensation, it can be by giving a blessing, a pleasure, or by reducing the pain and suffering. إذ لا فرق في العقل بين إيصال النفع ودفع الضرر في الإيثار. Aql doesn't distinguish in choice. Ithar means to choose between giving benefit or repelling harm. فإذا خفف عقابه, if عقاب is reduced, وكانت آلامه عظيمة, and his pains were great, now it's reduced because of إواز. علم أن آلامه بعد إسقاط ذلك القدر من العقاب أشد. Then he would realize that after that reduction because of Evaz, again it's going to be a lot. Therefore he's not going to enjoy. ولا يظهر أنه له أنه كان في راحة. He would not feel happy and relaxed and comfortable when we reduced the azab. Or there is another option. إنه تعالى ينقص من آلامه or ينقص من آلامه ما يستحقه من أعواضه متفرقا على الأوقات. Or we can say Allah would reduce from his pain what he deserves from compensation would be reduced by being divided and distributed over time, like we had for people of heaven. When it is reduced when it is distributed, it's reduced. It's not a big difference so that he would feel. So it becomes متفرقا على الأوقات, to be distributed over time, بحيث لا يظهر له الخفة من عقاب. So he would not feel that he had reduced and lighter punishment. So basically the idea is that this compensation, if it's given to people of heaven, it would be given in the way that after stopping they would not have pain. Either it doesn't stop at all with tafazzul, or if it stops, it's going to be coordinated in the way that there would not be big difference that would cause pain. And for people of hell also the same. Instead of giving them pleasure, pain is going to be reduced. There is no difference between isal naf or daf'u zarar, and also is going to be done over time. Now, there is a point which is controversial between some mutakallimin, among, for example, Mu'tazilites. And that is about whether this evaz has to be eternal or not. Khaja rahmatullah alayhi says, وَلَا يَجِبُ دَوَامُهُ. It's not necessary that compensation is enduring, is eternal. Why? Because if you remember, we had very key point. Our key point was you have to give this person as much that he would be fully satisfied. The compensation is put as much that he would be fully satisfied. Now, maybe sometimes people are fully satisfied with something which is not eternal. If you are going to say, okay, you are going to have to do this for 5 years, for 10 years, or 500 years, they would be happy. It doesn't need to be eternal. Khaja says, وَلَا يَجِبُ دَوَامُهُ لِحُسْنِ الزَّائِدِ بِمَا يَخْتَارُ مَعَهُ الْأَلَمِ وَإِنْ كَانَ مُنْقَطَعًا. Why it is not necessary to be eternal? Because that za'id, we said that manfa'at za'id, that extra, because if it is equal to what has been taken, it's not going to be satisfactory. But that additional benefit that we are going to give, that must be something that he says, I am happy to have this pain if you are going to give me that. So if we were going to ask him, he would say, yes, I am happy. This much of compensation, not little compensation or a little more. So much more that he would say, I am happy to have been put into this condition. So, لحسن الزائد, because that additional is good to the extent that يختار معه الألم, this person would choose with that kind of evaz alam. He says, I am happy to choose alam. Alam means pain. وَإِنْ كَانَ مُنْقَطًا, even if evaz is munqata. If we give him that much za'id that he would be happy, even if it is not eternal, then that's fine. Another question is, again controversial, is that some people say this must happen in dunya if it is not eternal. If it was eternal, had to be in akhirah. But if it is going to be for a limited period of time, it has to be in dunya. Khaja says, لا يجب حصوله في الدنيا. It doesn't need to be in dunya. Evas can be in dunya, can be afterwards. Why? لاحتمال مصلحة التأخير. Because maybe there is an interest in delay. Maybe it's better not to give him in dunya, either for him or for other people. It's better to delay it. وَالْأَلَمُ عَلَى الْقَاطِعِ مَمْنُوعٌ. Then someone says, okay, if it's going to be not eternal, it's going to stop. And if this stops, it will cause alam again. And that alam also has to be compensated. He says, to say that when it stops, there is alam, mamnu'un. This is not, we don't accept. Who said that necessarily there must be pain after it is stopping? Maybe, as we said, it will be divided or done in the way that there would be no pain. Plus, suppose that there is pain. Okay, that pain also may need compensation. But it doesn't mean that the first pain had eternal compensation. That pain had limited compensation. If there is another pain and we say that needs also compensation, that would have its own compensation. So it doesn't need to be eternal. This is what Khaja Rahmatullah Alayhi says. Now Allama expands and brings different opinions and helps us to understand why Khaja made these points. أقول لما ذكر وجوب العوض شرع في بيان أحكامه. When he mentioned that Evaz is necessary, now he started explaining different rulings and different properties of Evaz. وقد اختلف الشيخان. Two Mu'tazili sheikhs who are famous, Abu Ali and Abu Hashim, have differed. فقال أبو علي الجبائي إنه يجب دوامه. He said the Evaz must be da'im, must be endurable. وقال أبو هاشم لا يجب. But Abu Hashim said Evaz doesn't need to be wajib. واختاره المصنف. Khaja our author has also chosen this because he said لا يجب دوامه, like Abu Hashim. والدليل عليه, what is the argument for it? أن العوض أنما حسن لاشتماله على النفع الزائد على الألم أضعافا يختار معه المولم ألمه. We said Evaz is good because it involves benefit which is additional to the pain so many times that with that the one who has been put into pain would choose the pain, would say I am happy to have this pain if you are going to give this much to me. ومثل هذا يتحقق في المنقطع, and this can happen for someone whose pain is منقطع, stops. فكان وجه الحسن فيه ثابتا, so the reason for goodness is there, is available. فلا تجب إدامته, so it doesn't need to continue. So Evaz can be غير دائم, can be something which is not forever. وقد احتج أبو علي بوجهين, but Abu Ali said يجب دوامه, it must be دائم, it must be enduring. He has mentioned this argument, two arguments. قد احتج أبو علي بوجهين أشار المصنف إلى الجواب. Our author Khajeh has referred to answer for both problems, both issues, both arguments that Abu Ali brings. The first is this: أنه لو كان العوض منقطعا. Abu Ali says if Evaz is munqati, it must be in dunya. We left it for akhirah because it has to be eternal. But if I say it has to be munqati, so it can be in dunya. لو كان العوض منقطعا لوجب إيصاله في الدنيا. It must be given in dunya. لأن تأخير الواجب بعد وجوبه وانتفاء الموانع منع للواجب. Because if something is necessary like Evaz and you delay it without having obstacles, this is a problem. It means that what is necessary you are not doing. وإنما قلنا بانتفاع الموانع, and we said there is no mani here. Why? Because if Evaz was abadi, was eternal, you could not give it in dunya. Dunya is not capable of enduring Evaz. But if Evaz is not going to be forever, it's not going to be abadi, you could give it in dunya. So you have no problem. This dunya is capable of being a container for that. So why you are not giving in dunya? If Evaz is wajib, you must give it as soon as possible. Those who say in akhirah, because they say dunya is not good enough for eternal Evaz. لو كان العوض منقطعا لوجب إيصاله في الدنيا. You had to give it in dunya. Why? Because it's possible in dunya, and then you should not delay it. لأن تأخير الواجب بعد وجوبه وانتفاع الموانع منع للواجب. If wujub has become actual, it says, do this, and it doesn't say, do it tomorrow. It says do this, and I can do it right now. So if I delay it, means that I am stopping wajib. وإنما قلنا بانتفاع الموانع. Why we said there is no mani here? Because mani for dunya being a container for Evaz was that Evaz is eternal, dunya is not eternal. But if you accept that Evaz is not eternal, dunya is good. وإنما قلنا بانتفاع الموانع لأن المانع هو الدوام مع انقطاع الحياة المانع من دوامه. Because we said that Evaz has to be da'im, and this life is munqati, stops in dunya, stops and doesn't let us to have eternal avas. But if you say it doesn't need to be eternal, there's no mane. Wal jawab. What is our reply? We say لا نسلم. We don't accept أن المانع من تقدمه في الدنيا أنما هو انقطاع الحياة. We don't accept that the only mane was that dunya is limited, and evas, if was eternal, could not happen dunya. We say maybe it is not eternal and it still should not happen now. It's not eternal, it's munqati, but it still should not happen now. Why? Because there can be a maslaha for the same person or other people that we don't give them right away in dunya. For example, to see their patience and to add to their reward because of their patience. لجواز أن يكون في تأخيره مصلحة خفية, because it's possible that in delaying the compensation there is a hidden maslaha. الثاني, the second argument that Abu Ali is bringing is لو كان العوض منقطعا لزم دوامه. Abu Ali says if it was munqati, still you had to accept that it has to be da'im, eternal. Why? Because this evaz ends, then there is pain, then that pain, second pain, needs evaz. That stops, then we have pain, then we need evaz, then evaz stops, then we have pain, and that needs evaz. So it has to carry on. So the best thing is that to say evaz is abadi. لو كان العوض منقطعا لزم دوامه. If evaz was munqati, it was going to stop, it would imply that it has to continue because it keeps coming again and again and again. وَالتَّالِي لَا يُجَامُ الْمُقَدَّمِ. But this would not be compatible with muqaddam. Muqaddam is, we say if P then Q. P is muqaddam. So we say if evaz was munqati, then it has to become eternal. So it means that it cannot be munqati. Why we say if it was munqati had to become da'im? بيان الملازمة أنه بانقطاعه, because when evaz stops يتألم. This sahibul evaz, the person who receives this compensation, would have pain. Why this stopped? I was very comfortable, I was enjoying this. So there is a pain, then that pain needs compensation. You have put him in pain, you have to compensate. Then that compensation, if it is not eternal, then it stops, then again another pain comes, and this continues. فَيَلْضَمْ مِنْ إِنْقِطَاعِهِ دَوَامُ. So then from inqita, dawam comes as an outcome. This becomes burhan khulf. وَالْجَوَابُ مِنْ وَجْهَيْنِ. Now we want to reject the idea of Abu Ali, and we say no, it doesn't need to be da'im. الأول يجوز انقطاعه من غير أن يشعر صاحبه بانقطاعه. We can imagine that it happens in this way so that all the problems disappear. How? Evaz is munqati, it's possible that evaz is munqati, but without that person who is given evaz feels that, yash'ur, doesn't perceive that. How he doesn't understand that it is stopped, it has stopped? إما لإيصاله إليه على التدريج في الأوقات, because we were giving that evaz over a period of time so that there is not big rapid change and then coming down and he would suffer. بحيث لا يشعر بانتفائه. We divide it over time so that he would not feel that it's stopping. لكثرة غيره من منافعه, because he has other things and this was made so little over a period of time so that he wouldn't feel anything. Or we have another option. Maybe this person can be made heedless. His attention can be diverted away by God from this point so that he would not suffer. Or maybe since they are rational in heaven, they would not think about something which is not useful. When they have something, they enjoy it. When they don't have it, they don't suffer. Maybe this is also a response that we can add to what is in the book. أو بأن يجعله صاهيا ثم يقطعه. Allah would make him sahi. Sahi from sahf means qafla. Means his attention is taken away. Then Evaz stops. فلا يتألم حينئذ. But he wouldn't suffer because he doesn't remember or he doesn't pay attention to the fact that I had this. الثاني أنه غير محل. With respect to the second issue that he said, if this Evaz stops, there is alam, then that second alam needs Evaz, then that Evaz, if it stops, this alam, third alam, then third alam needs Evaz. This was the point. The answer is, this is غير محل النزاع. This is out of our discussion. Why? Because we were talking about the first Evaz, and we said that has to be munqati, stop. The maximum you are saying is that there would be other kinds of compensations for other reasons. Okay, this didn't make that eternal. لأن البحث في العوض المستحق على الألم. Our discussion was about the compensation which was needed because of pain, over suffering. هل يجب إدامته? The discussion was this, that compensation, was it necessary to continue? وليس البحث في استلزام الألم الحاصل بالانقطاع لعوض آخر وهكذا. The question was not that انقطاع of Evaz can produce pain and that pain needs to be compensated, etc. That was not our point. Our point was the first one, that Evaz for something which is done to this person in dunya doesn't need to be eternal. And the last thing for today, one of the things about Evaz is that Evaz is not like thawab. If you remember, we said thawab has to come with ta'zeem, with praising, with revering. Say, you have done this and this is your reward. But for Evaz, it doesn't need to come with ta'zeem because this person has not done anything. He has been oppressed, but he has not necessarily done anything. If he has done something else, then for that he would get reward. But even without doing anything, like a child, for example, who has been oppressed, he has not done anything, for example, or someone was killed, he has not done anything after that, but still Evaz will be given. So Evaz doesn't need praising and honoring. Now the question is, does it need to be given with by informing the person? We say no, because there is no need to honor him and revere him, and you do ta'zeem and takreem. Therefore, we have to give him that much that we are sure he is 100% happy. But we don't need to tell him that this is your Evaz. Say, look, this has been given to you because of that suffering. Khaja says, لا يجب إشعار صاحبه بإيصاله عوضا. It's not necessary to inform Sahibul Evaz that we have made this reach you. We have made Evaz reach you. There's no need to inform him. Allah says, هذا حكم آخر للعوض. This is another ruling about إِوَازِ يُفَارِقُ بِهِ الثَّوَابِ, which would make it different from ثواب, from reward. وهو أنه لا يجب إشعار مستحقه بتوفيته عوضا له بخلاف الثواب. With respect to إِوَازِ, there is no necessity of إشعار. إشعار means to make him يشعر, to make him understand. We don't need to inform him. Inform whom? مستحقه, the one who deserves إِوَازِ. We don't need to inform him بتوفيته, that وفاه الله, وفى يوفي, like إنما يوفى الصابرون أجرهم, means to give something in full. So we don't need to tell him that he has been given this إِوَازِ, and he should know that. بخلاف الثواب, unlike ثواب, reward. إذ يجب في الثواب مقارنة التعظيم, because ثواب has to come with ta'zim. He has done something that needs reward. ولا فائدة فيه إلا مع العلم به. There is no benefit in ثواب and ta'zim if you don't know about it. Ta'zim has to be something that people know. If I say, I have done ta'zim of you without you knowing, so what's the benefit? It's not useless, but it cannot be my reward. Somehow you have to inform me. At least later you have to tell me that you have done this for me. أما هنا, but in the discussion about هنا means إِوَازِ. فلأنه منافع وملاذ. ملاذ with تشديد. This is different from ملاذ without تشديد. ملاذ without تشديد comes from لوذ. Malath means malja, refuge, shelter. But malath with shadda is the plural for malath, from ladha, means pleasure. So إِوَازِ is a kind of manafi. There is manfat, benefits, and ladha, pleasures. وقد ينتفع ويلتذ من لا يعلم ذلك. Sometimes a person without knowing can benefit from something and enjoy. For example, if someone lives in a cold home and as a compensation we give him heater, he's going to benefit from this heater. Whether he knows this heater is compensation for that suffering or not, he's going to benefit from this heater and enjoy this heater in the winter. وَقَدْ يَنْتَفِعُ وَيَلْتَذُّ مَنْ لَا يَعْلَمُ ذَلِكَ. Sometimes, even those who don't know, they are going to benefit and enjoy. فما يجب إيصاله إلى المصاب في الآخرة من الأعواض يجب أن يكون عالما به من حيث إنه مصاب لا من حيث إنه معوض. So someone who deserves reward, we are going to give him a return, but that return is different from return for pain. Return that is for someone who has done something good must come with information, with acknowledging that. So what is necessary to give to muthab, to one who is going to be rewarded in the hereafter from compensation, so whatever compensation he has to be given, he has done something good, we are going to give return. يجب أن يكون عالما, he must be aware of it. من حيث إنه مثاب, because he is rewarded. So not just because compensation needs this. No, compensation, if it is for reward, yes. If it is for suffering, it doesn't need to be informed. وحينئذ أمكن أن يوفيه الله تعالى في الدنيا. It is possible that in dunya can be given this compensation for suffering. على بعض المعوضين غير المكلفين. Sometimes they are not mukallaf, a child or maybe an animal can be compensated in dunya. or a child or a mad person, I don't know, someone who doesn't have understanding can be given this evaz. Or أن ينتصف لبعض من بعض في الدنيا, or someone has done bad to you, Allah in dunya would punish that person, for example, or take your right from him and give to you, and you don't know what has happened. You know, for example, that person has no barakah, you have barakah in your life. This is evaz, this is compensation. فَلَا تَجِبُ إِعَادَتُهُمْ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. If Allah does enough in dunya, then just because you didn't know, you cannot say, okay, he has to repeat it because I didn't know. So informing is not necessary. I think it's enough for today. There are a few more ahkam for evaz that inshallah we are going to discuss. And then the next issue is about ajal, about deadlines, and then arzaq, about rizq, sustenance, then as'ar, about the prices, and then aslah, about the most beneficial. So there are few small discussions remaining. Inshallah, in 2-3 sessions we will finish this section, inshallah, bi'iznillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
As far as questions, Sheikh, there's none on the chat as of now.
No question? Okay. May Allah inshallah bless all of you, and thank you very much. Did you say anything?
Yes, I was just saying thank you, and there's lots of thank yous on the chat.
Thank you. May Allah